Welcome to another AMA. My name is John Belizaire, and I am the CEO of Soluna Holdings, Inc. We'll be answering shareholders and potential investors' most asked questions about dilution, Soluna's current stock price, and plans for becoming cash flow positive, and more over the next few slides. If you'd like to see these answers in written form, please visit solunacomputing.com/blogs. A shareholder asks, what are you going to do about the note holders and the potential dilution? What is the interest on the debt? There is no current cash interest expense on the debt. There is instead an original issue discount of 8% per annum. One way to mitigate the dilution impact of the conversion is to pay off the notes with cash. We plan to generate cash from operations, and we are exploring other non-dilutive sources of cash. When and will you restore dividends on your preferred stock, SL and HP? Well, as Soluna's earnings power and free cash flow improves, management and the board of directors will decide on the best use of the company's cash. Possible uses of cash include paying down the convertible notes, as I discussed before, funding capital expenditures that we could use to grow earnings power, or paying the preferred dividend. What are we going to do about the NASDAQ delisting notice due to the 20% share price? We did submit a plan to NASDAQ to cure the deficiency, and we received a 180-day extension of time to cure the deficiency. Our primary plan focuses on continuing our success identifying and pursuing opportunities to grow shareholder value, with the expectation that the increase in value will potentially impact our share price by an amount sufficient to bring our stock back into compliance with NASDAQ's listing requirements. Our secondary plan is to execute a reverse stock split with an exchange ratio that we expect to achieve and sustain the $1 minimum trading price required by NASDAQ. There's no secret that the price of Soluna is currently valued for bankruptcy. What are the plans going forward to create value for the shareholders on top of reaching profitability? Well, our strategy is focused and presented in our 2023 earnings power presentation, which you can find at solunacomputing.com/investors, and it's also linked in the description of this video. We're focused on commercializing our flagship project, Dorothy. We've talked a lot about the progress we're making on the roll-in and ramp up there, and we plan to continue to develop new projects such as Katy and Dorothy 2 that can attract project-level capital. We believe the increased earnings, building that flywheel that you'll see in the presentation I talked about, and driving cash flow potential of the company is what ultimately drives value for shareholders. I recently got an email about the reverse split. This is going to be major dilution to our shareholders. What is the game plan to get us back up to the value that the company had 1 year ago in June of 2022? Well, reverse splits do not cause dilution. That's a misconception. Also, we submitted a plan to NASDAQ to cure the deficiency, and we received a 180-day extension of time to cure. Our primary plan focuses on continuing our success, really identifying and pursuing opportunities to grow shareholder value, as I talked about, by focusing on our core projects and new projects, with the expectation that by focusing on these project developments that will increase value and potentially impact our share price by an amount sufficient to bring our stock back into compliance with NASDAQ's listing requirements. And as I mentioned before, our secondary plan is to execute a reverse stock split with an exchange ratio that we expect to achieve and sustain the $1 minimum trading price that's required by NASDAQ. What are the board's plans or policies related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI? Does the company intend to expand its disclosures on human capital? Well, our board of directors and the management remain committed to diversity throughout the organization. This starts with tone and actions at the very top of the company. We currently have an opportunity to enhance our diversity, specifically at the board level, and are actively seeking the right individual that will add to and complement our board. Are you aware of your stock being manipulated by bad actors? If you are not aware, are you willing to look into it? Well, these things are a bit difficult to prove, and we believe by focusing our energy on improving our cash flow is the best way to create long-term value for our investors. A comment had been made that the company should be cash flow positive at some point this year. Is it expected to remain that way? What are the plans for the positive cash flow, reduced debt, continued expansion? What are the plans? As Soluna's earnings power and free cash flow improves, management and the board of directors will decide on the best use of the company's cash. Possible uses, as I mentioned in the previous question, will be including paying down the convertible notes, funding capital expenditures, or paying the preferred dividend. Why do a reverse split when revenue later this year will be multiple times higher, which will lead to a higher stock price? Well, what we're doing now is we're requesting the authority to do a reverse split to assure our continued listing on the NASDAQ exchange. As I mentioned before, we've gotten an extension of that for about 180 days. However, we have not set a date to effectuate the split and sincerely hope that one is not necessary. What is the plan to make preferred holders whole? The company's board of directors is constantly assessing the current and future cash flows of the company, and depending on its point of view on the cash flows, will make a determination of when and if to resume paying the dividends or to take any other actions that may affect the value of his preferred shares. With current operations, what is the EBITDA generated on a quarterly basis? What is the incremental EBITDA with each additional megawatt that's generated? That's a great question, and you can see in our recent 2023 earnings power presentation that we published on our investor website. We cover this topic and we show you EBITDA generated by project, EBITDA generated for a future project like Dorothy 2, so you can see on a megawatt basis how much additional cash flow and profitability gets generated by each of these projects. Are you currently accruing for the cumulative dividend on the outstanding preferred shares, SLNHP? Yes, cumulative dividends are disclosed in our 10Q footnotes as dividends in arrears. For example, in our Q1, it was noted in footnote 9, but they are not accrued as a liability for accounting purposes until they are declared. Thanks for submitting your questions. If you're reading this and haven't had a chance to ask your question, it's not too late. Just fill out the form in the video description box or drop your questions on Twitter. We're at Soluna Holdings, and we'll answer your questions on our next AMA installment. If your question wasn't answered here, be sure to submit or subscribe to our newsletter. It's also linked in the notes, and we're providing business insights and answering questions there all the time on a regular basis. Until next time, keep pushing.